Um, I'm your host, Goresh. I'm also the founder and CEO of Sybill. We started the company about 5 years ago. It's been a journey so far. Today, I have with me two of our best customers, Ingrid from Bloomfire, who leads their RevOps team, and Matt Green from Sales Assembly, their CRO. And I also have a couple of folks from my team, Matt, who is in founding AE on our team and using Sybil every day, my partner in crime, Nishit. And then we have Colin and Drew from our marketing teams, who has made this webinar possible. Um, the reason why we are meeting today is essentially over the last year, what has happened is we have had thousands of people join Sybil and start using Sybil and start bringing it into their day-to-day workflow, where it is one of the most critical pieces alongside LinkedIn and HubSpot. But still, what has happened is people have taken us as a note taker that does really good call summaries. Whereas the product itself, the journey of the product has been evolving from being a note taker in 2022, which is where we started out. We were one of the first ones to release call summaries, to now we are much more than just a single note taker. We think of ourselves as an AI sales assistance, which is not just a system of record and capturing the data, but more importantly, it transitioned to being a system of intelligence. And over time, it has now started to transition into being a system of intelligent actions, which is how can this AI help you autonomously complete actions easily and so that you can keep focusing on your customers. Um, that's what all of today is about. We want you to hear from different personas on how they are using Sybil in their day and how they are leveraging the best and greatest features of Sybil. Um, I have a couple of slides that I want to walk through, but we will soon get into the product demo. So, um, so this is not shared. Okay, let's see. Okay. So at a very high level, where we started out was I want to just capture the data. I want to connect my systems together, and I want Sybil to learn from each of these systems that we have captured. So whether it's calls, emails, your CRM deals, LinkedIn updates, all of that should get captured as a system of record. But now, one of the things you can do with Sybil is you can ask it like you do chat, like you ask ChatGPT for any questions around your deals or calls or emails and help it figure out, like it will figure out answers and very in-depth answers in some cases to those questions. Over the last couple of months, we have started moving into also taking actions on top of that data. So it's not just insights you're getting, but you're actually able to take those insights and convert them into actual actions. This is where Sybil is not just a single call recorder, but it's almost become your EA of sorts, your personal assistant, your coordinator, and also someone you can strategize with your deal, and all of that put into one single bucket. Uh, and we think of it as a new category, which is the AI sales assistant. Where do we fit in the funnel? So sales processes go from prospecting, which is figuring out how to get an individual on the first meeting, down to post sales and expansion. Where we believe we are the best fit for is once you land that first meeting, in preparation for that meeting, down to the point where you're closing the deal and transitioning it over to the sales, customer success, or the account management, is where Sybil can really help move things forward. And this is also the part where A's especially have not found as much um, assistance or help with a lot of other software products out there, and it's something which still becomes a blocker. So either the number of follow-ups that are that are required to close even a few weeks of deals is through the roof. It takes a lot of coaching and guidance to understand where exactly is the deal going forward to, and who are the people that are involved, and how can we get into different discussions in the deal process. And then on top of that, um, like because you have so many deals in one single at any time in parallel, it becomes hard to manage that entire thing. It's like I'm if I have 10 deals, I have 30 different action items that I need to take care of. And I keep forgetting which ones I promised maybe a week back, which ones I promised 2 weeks back. And things like to-do list or sticky notes or pen and paper or can only scale up to a certain point. And this is where things are holding us back, and where Sybil can really help in make that process much more seamless, so you can be focused on the customers and keep on helping them be like helping solve their problems, and in becoming better as a salesperson, as someone who can build that relationship. So today we are going to talk through different personas on how four different personas on how Sybil is being used across this stack, from an AE's perspective to a leader's perspective. And I'm going to first invite Nishit, my co founder and partner in crime. He heads our GTM. And I would love for him to talk about the top features that are out there that users are leveraging for Sybil. Nishit, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Great to meet you all. And I see a lot of chatter on the chat, so that's phenomenal to see. And yeah, thanks so much for laying it up, Gorish. So great. So essentially, how are people using Sybil? So in this call, as Gorish mentioned, you are going to see like how four different personas are using Sybil in their day-to-day to streamline their workflows. I think before we dive into like exactly what that kind of looks like, it might be interesting to kind of take a look at how that actually transforms the day to day. And we have seen a lot of interesting kind of stats and anecdotes on that. So uh, we've seen folks who are basically sales leaders tell us that the kind of transformation that Sybil has caused in their kind of day to day, and also in their sales teams, how they have been able to handle a lot more deals with the same team size, how they've been able to close a lot more with the same team size, or how they've been able to expand the team without worrying over an extended ramp period. So all of those things are kind of coming together, and on an individual rep level, we see a lot of interesting stuff happening there as well. Some of our top users are closing 2x to 4x more revenue after adopting Sybil within the 6 months after adopting Sybil. And this is across AEs, AMs, customer success managers, and so on and so forth. So a lot of that is possible, and that's to a large degree, that is, I think, motivation for us to share the best practices of using Sybil. Because basically, if you become a top user, if you already are, that's amazing. You can get even higher. But if you are using Sybil for your day to day, but you think you can go further, there's a lot of reward at the other end of the spectrum. So let me actually share my screen and walk through some of what that looks like. So fundamentally, as Gaurish shared, Sybil has evolved quite a lot from our roots, starting out as an AI note taker a few years ago. So I think this is an interface you all must be familiar with, which is basically our call summaries. I just picked out one of our recent sales conversations. You can see you have the call recording, you have the summary, you have the transcript, and you can do a lot with it. But where things get interesting is that once you take the call summaries and you're able to kind of ingest all of them together and do some analyses on top of it. So what that kind of looks like in terms of how it works internally in Sybil is that as a system, we obviously take all your call recordings, we connect to your CRM, email, calendar. All of those data sources combine, and in the backend, Sybill is then creating kind of a holistic picture of what's happening across every single deal, every single call that you're on. Um, every single contact, opportunity, account that you're working on is a node in a graphical interface that we've created on the backend. And so Sybill is curating and combining interesting information on each of those entities, of like who they are, what do they do, what's their motivations, what's their personality, how you've talked to them in the past, and so on and so forth. So then when you ask questions to Sybill, or when you run some queries on Sybill, run some automations on Sybill, you basically get detailed analysis based on that pre-computed information. And then on top of this, we have an automations and workflow layer where Sybill is able to automate a bunch of your tasks in your day-to-day. So what that looks like is, if you see here on the left-hand side menu on Sybill, you can see most of what I'm talking about. So Ask Sybill is how Sybill exposes you to the intelligence layer that it has. And as you can see, once you enter Ask Sybill, you can ask Sybill questions. You can go from a prompt to an answer about a single call or an opportunity. You can also go from a prompt to a report, which spans across all the external calls that you've taken recently, or all the internal calls you've taken recently. Those could be reports around coaching, performance review, forecasting, deal inspection, you name it. It's essentially like a blank canvas on top of all the data that you have in Sybill, and you can use it in many different ways. And we're going to see some of those very interesting use cases in the next few minutes. So this is the intelligence layer. On top of it, there's a bunch of automations you can do inside of Sybill. For AEs per se, a few automations that I'd like to kind of talk about is or just introduce over here is, first and foremost, you have pre-meeting preparation. So for any upcoming conversation, Sybill creates a pre-meeting preparation document summarizing who you're going to meet with, what should be the agenda of the conversation, recommended talking points, and so on. Past any meeting, Sybill helps create your follow-up emails, which is the other set of automations that we've created. Now, Sybill's follow-up emails have become much more contextual and personalized to your own tone of voice and how you talk to different types of folks in your conversations. It's taking a while to load over here, but in the interest of time, I'll move forward. And then Sybill, obviously, in terms of meeting preparation and follow-ups, Sybill also post every single meeting, especially if it's an external meeting, is able to automatically update any and all custom fields in your CRM. And so that takes us to the next level, which is like meeting preparation follow-ups, followed by kind of deal analysis and being able to analyze exactly what's going on in every single deal that you're working on. So that's the other piece that we are going to spend quite a bit of time on today. And this is where you can basically understand exactly how things are going, what needs to happen next, what are the major risks, red flags in every single deal, and so on. The third major interface in Sybill is what we call tasks. And this is essentially compile tasks across all the calls, all the opportunities that you're working on, put in a single list, so automatically created and captured by Sybill. And what's most recent about this is now you can also get Sybill to execute on those tasks. And we'll cover that in more detail later. But essentially here now, Sybill, you can ask Sybill to start working on some of your pending tasks. And when you get back, you can see that Sybill has executed on those tasks. And you can see emails that Sybill has written, Slack messages that it has written, calendar meetings that it has already booked for you based on whatever you've committed to on calls. And then finally, as kind of like your creative canvas, especially if you have that bent of mind, we have what we call AI workflows. And this is the interface where you can come in and configure Sybill to be your own personal AI sales assistant. This is where you can come in and can basically break the barriers of what's possible in the typical note taker and set up Sybill the way you would want to execute on it. This is where you can come in and customize everything from how you prepare for meetings, how you follow up on meetings with the email templates. This is where you can set up your own deal boards and deal summaries that you want to have access to and the stuff that you want to push into your CRM systems. And this is also where you can customize your meeting summaries and save your most promising and favorite prompts. You're going to see some insanely good prompts across the board in the next half an hour. So So this is basically a quick harbor cruise of what's possible in Sybill. We're going to go deep into a lot of this stuff, especially when it pertains to each and every persona that's using Sybill. And with that, I'll pass it over. I think Drew, who's coming up next. I think it's Matt, right?
Yeah.
It is. It is.
Awesome.
How is it going, everybody? You might have seen me on LinkedIn with my t-shirt from Dreamforce, trying to book 10 meetings, but here is a face to the name in here. So I'm gonna share my screen. For context, guys, I'm an AE at Sybil. So I use this thing every single day. In terms of like helping me prep for meetings, helping me categorize information, run prompts in the background to make me a better seller. And it's saved me a ton of time just as a rep. I've used to use, some of the bigger names in the space in terms of CI tools and always found myself running into issues. It took me a ton of time on some of that stuff. So I'm going to show you a couple examples, I suppose, of how I use things personally inside of Sybil, touching on some of the points that Nishit just mentioned as well. All right, cool. So familiar screen here. When I log in for the day, obviously I can start to see like all my meetings within here that I've had previously. More importantly is this upcoming meeting section. This is where I can come in and start to prepare for meetings. So instead of my old workflow of having to ask ChatGPT, hey, help me prepare for this meeting. Now, because Sybil has context into previous conversations, CRM data, email communications with potential customers, I can leverage this for pre-meeting briefs to pop this open and get prepped on a meeting. I can easily see past interactions with a customer. Maybe this is a second call, get up to speed on that. Who's joining their call? I have access to their LinkedIn within here. I can also see maybe a proposed agenda, an account overview, recommended talking points, multi-threading suggestions. This is a huge one for me. Nishit is always pushing me to multi-thread in deals and stuff like that. So having the system actually prompt me based on the conversation who could be someone good to loop in is always really helpful on something like that. The beauty of this is these can all be customized. So no matter what, whether it's a discovery call, a demo, negotiation, you can have different elements of that populate so that you have what you need going into that call. And if you have sometimes like me back-to-back calls, I look at this 5 seconds before the call sometimes, and I can easily get a snapshot so I know what I'm jumping into on something like that. All right, cool. The next piece of this is really kind of gets into some of the deal stuff. So this is an active deal within here. These summaries, again, are completely configurable. So from a deal level, I can start to surface information about that opportunity easily within here. So on a deal, I can see one, quick snapshot, what's the current status? We touched on a little bit of the AI tasks within here. It looks like I've been on my game here in terms of sending my follow-ups because of Sybil. So I can see any AI tasks. I can see summary of their pain points. Qualification looks like I need to do a little bit better on MedPick, so I'm working on that piece. And then some other potential things like blockers, what might come up down the funnel for this deal. Um, Multi-threading suggestions again, continuing to add in additional stakeholders into that process there. So these deal summaries are really helpful for me just to kind of see at a snapshot view like what's going on with this opportunity so that whether I'm hopping into a new call, I'm on a pipeline review with Nishit, I know what's going on in my front, and I can easily see this information from here. Now into the fun stuff, which I think is Ask Sybil. So it's going to be like a lot of different use cases I would say that I use like every single day. So like one good one out of the gate is I have a report that runs in the background every single morning at 8 a.m., which is called like a daily deal pulse. Basically, what this does is looks at my active pipeline and identifies where things are at, current risks, what are the next steps in all my opportunities, and it can even draft me like a follow-up nudge on an opportunity so that if I can make a touch to progress that deal forward, it's going to automatically write that for me. This has saved me a ton of time so that as I log in for the day, I'm going to go through all my active opportunities and start to see that. So you're going to see that it actually spits out a piece of collateral within here. These have been anonymized just for the sake of clarity there, but you can kind of see like what's high priority in this deal here. Snapshot, open tasks, next steps, risk. Here's a potential follow-up based on that conversation that I can just draft and send out to those people. And this kind of goes through all my active opportunities. What all you do to leverage this is realistically just look at this, run down my opportunities, and I make sure that I follow up with everybody and I'm done in about, 20 minutes on something like that versus having to check HubSpot, having to check my email, remember what I talked to somebody about, 2 weeks ago. This is going to be an easy way for me to see a lot of that information in one spot within here. All right. Next one is something that I just recently built, which is called like Next Quarter Navigator. I think as a sales rep, a lot of the time as you're heading into end of quarter, which we just ran into, I'm starting to think about the next quarter in terms of like one, what deals are potentially going to push into that next quarter? How do I re-engage certain prospects, or kind of a look back in terms of like what worked well for me in the last quarter? Where was I strong and where are potential coaching elements for something like that? So I have this prompt that again runs at the end of every month within here, or I'm sorry, at the end of every quarter. And it builds me a pipeline plan in terms of showing me here's all my deals that might carry over into Q1, information about risk signals, next steps within there. I can see potential re-engages based on where things stalled out. So maybe a customer told me, hey Matt, this is a great opportunity, but you don't have this certain feature. Now that Sybill launched it, it's a perfect opportunity to reach out for something like that. Things that worked in Q4, or yeah, in Q4 in this case, like what did I do well within there? What deal sizes were working, industries, people that I talked to, and then even like a target list of here's matching patterns that I can see within there. So very helpful as you think about like planning out your quarter and staying on top of things. I think as reps, we get so engulfed in like finishing out the month, but you got to think about the future. Sybil's helping me do that with a lot of these reports that we're able to pull on something like this. The last Ask Sybil thing that I'll talk about here is ultimately just kind of looking at a deal. So I'll ask it questions in terms of like summarize this deal within here. Tell me the next steps, the status, all that sort of information. So I can ask it questions like this. It's going to spit out current status, red flags, opportunities. Here's again, it's like a next step within here, within something like that. And then I can also continue to ask questions. So I had it like create a mutual action plan for something like this. So it's going to spit out an actual mutual action plan that I can leverage, maybe make some changes to, and then send off to the customer so that we have, a game plan for how we're going to get this deal executed. So not only can Ask Sybil like help me internally in terms of like prepping out my deals, but you can also leverage this for like creating collateral, things like mutual action plans, executive summaries that you can send to a CEO that's going to take a look at a deal like this, or even pricing proposals. The power of Ask Sybil is pretty vast in the way that it looks at how you're progressing your deals and things like that, but you can also leverage this for a lot of different use cases on something like that. All right, cool. Touching on those pieces, the other things I wanted to talk about is I suppose like after a meeting happens and how I kind of execute my day. I live in the tasks piece of Civil pretty effectively on something like this. So what I do within here is inside the task, I'll usually group this by deal so I can see all my deals within here and what active tasks. You're gonna see that it's highlighted green, which means Sybil thinks that I completed these, which in this case I did. So there's a lot of overlap in something like this, but I can easily go in here and to Nishit's point, run these in the background and I come back in, they're all ready for me. So for example, I need to follow this, send this follow-up meeting for 7 a.m. I click on this. It's already got a name in there. It has the attendees, the date, the time, and a quick agenda. And I can just open this in my Gmail calendar, send that invite out on something like that. So it saves me a ton of time and things like that, or even follow-up emails. So as I'm going through and after a call, the bane of existence of AEs is having to send follow-ups all the time. So I use this a lot to just write those follow-ups for me within there. So for example, I can use this to like um, write a follow-up automatically for me and it drops me in, writes my follow-up. I can make some changes in here, edit it, and then ultimately send that out from something like that. So tasks for me have been a huge time saver as it relates to just like navigating my day. The way that the system is automatically creating these tasks for me, which means as a rep, I don't have to do anything. These are automatically living in my tasks within here, and then I can just execute on something like that. All right, cool. Take another step here too. Like on a meeting, like this is a call I had earlier this week. I can just use this to automatically generate a follow-up email and it's going to spit out something like this. Maybe I wanted to make changes to it, make it shorter, make it more conversational. I can always ask Sybil right within here. But the cool thing about this, especially as a rep, is I write follow-ups one way, Nishit writes follow-ups a different way, Gorish write follow-ups a different way. Sybil learns how I send those follow-ups, how I talk, like how my messaging looks and will use that to like build future follow-ups for me so that I don't have to make changes or edits. Again, in a past life, I used other tools where essentially the follow-ups were not great. I would usually have to take the transcript out of that platform, put it into ChatGPT, and then make my changes there. This eliminates that within that level so that I can just, I know that the follow-up is going to sound just like how I would sound, and I can ultimately just send that off from something like that. Last piece of my part here is around some of like the CRM autofill. So we touched on like the summary page of that deal within here, but ultimately where Sybill's going to save me a ton of time is autofilling the CRM in this case. So we use HubSpot internally. Again, in a past life, every time I moved a deal from stage one to stage two, I'd have to fill in like 16 different fields. And between you and me, I usually just bullshitted most of that. And I just put in information that was going to get me to the next step. That's completely alleviated with something like this. And it's going to be allow me to like auto-fill this information without me having to do much in here. So you can see kind of an example of like tech stack within here, product requirements, potential close dates, product gaps, close loss, champions, things like that. These are all fields that we're automatically pushing to HubSpot so that I, as a rep, can focus on selling. I don't have to worry about updating the CRM. If I need to add my own human notes to those CRM entries, I definitely can, but this saves me time in terms of like not having to update those fields. I know they're going to be accurate and probably better articulated than I could write in a CRM for something like that. So again, this then pushes into HubSpot in this case. This is just an example deal, but I can see on this left side, Sybil's automatically filling out these fields for me so that from a reporting standpoint, Nishit never has to ask me, which tools are these guys using or what's the critical event here for something like that. Sybill's going to autofill all of this information to make things very easy on that front there. And again, save me a ton of time as a rep just to focus back on selling. So that's my spiel. Thanks for the time. I think I'm passing it off to Ingrid.
Yeah. Uh, this is pretty amazing. Thank you so much, Matt. I think the one way, if you take one thing from this conversation, we want you to think of Sybil as your personal assistant. Think of it as a human sitting on the side, and you can just delegate off work. The more work you can delegate, the more focus you can keep on your customers, the more successful Sybil will become. Like that's how we feel, that's how we are building the tool. If you have your own personal EA. Next up, we have Ingrid. Ingrid comes from a different background than Matt. So she leads strategic insights and Bloomfire, and RevOps comes under her function. And Ingrid has been a customer for now over 3 years, Ingrid, I think.
Yeah.
And a lot of the features that you see in the product, Ingrid and the product team have basically co-developed. They started off as feedback on a Slack channel from her, and now they are actual workflows or automations or insights into the platform. I'm very excited for Ingrid to show how she's using Sybil in her daily life and how she enables her team to leverage a platform like it and bring out insights which can uplevel the entire team. Ingrid, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you for the lovely introduction. So nice. And Matt, I loved seeing the lens of an AE using Sybil. We definitely use Sybil for, when we first started using Sybil, it was the traditional sense, call recording, task management. My personal favorite, the automation of all the fields in our Salesforce instance, which is lovely because I'm forever obsessed with making our teammates' lives easier so they can focus on what matters. But when we started using those CRM filling in the fields, this was before the Ask Guy feature, we noticed something really magical, and that was that Sybil was picking up on insights that maybe a person wasn't focused on and capturing. So all of a sudden, we had some really lovely quality fields being populated in our Salesforce instance. And as a data nerd of Bloomfire, I love reporting and seeing the trends and themes that are emerging. And that's really where we've taken Sybil to the next level, and we really have gotten some magic out of it with the strategic insights, and not just for sales. This is something that, we're obsessed with what is delighting our customers first and foremost. So we are able now to pick up and see insights on what is making our customers excited. What are our prospects getting excited about? Where are they having those aha moments so that we can really go and replicate that because excitement is contagious. And everyone, you know that with prospect and sales discussions. Also, so it's not just sales. We have our CS team heavily using for logistical as well as strategic input and for our marketing teams to understand what's resonating, what new themes are popping up that we need to make sure we're ahead of so that we can be more proactive in our messaging versus a reactive situation. Also, what was the other team? For product, this is so exciting too. Our product team having trends and insights for our customer feedback. So very lovely. So we are using these fields. We started seeing that magic. Then when we started with the Ask AI prompts, which is my favorite part of Sybill, we've really gotten excited about what we've been able to pluck out. So now I have these regular cadence summaries sent to me in gorgeous PDFs that tell me, hey, for this week, you have XYZ trend happening. It's different than last week, by the way. Pay attention to it. Or ABC, very, very exciting, a new happy aha moment that we're seeing our customers have. So very, very wonderful. And that's the part that's really lovely. And I thought I'd just do a very quick deep dive on my favorite prompt that we have right now is we've been working strategically with one of our teams to develop different paths of conversations. So it's not a tactical reactive situation, but instead we're working with those teams to understand the ROI of Bloomfire and the loveliness that comes with Bloomfire when our customers are using it. So we worked on our speaking points and how we're coaching with our partners, these conversations. And I can actually show from 1 month ago, 2 months ago, a quarter ago, the percentage of time spent on tactical reactive conversations versus proactive strategic empowering our customers conversations. And we have data to show this improvement. How very lovely is that? So that's my favorite prompt right now is simply evaluate these calls for XYZ themes, show me the trend of the time percentage change from point X to point Y. And I literally am getting this summary in my email inbox that I can share with my teammates to show the positive work that our team has been doing. It's actually quite lovely. I didn't, I just think about when I started working 100 years ago. Nothing like this was possible. And now we just have it at our fingertips delivered. It's lovely. Any questions or Gorish or Nishit, anything else you wanted me to add?
No.
Okay, good deal.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. Uh, would you be sharing your screen or for the prompt?
I can show you the prompt. It's so simple too. Here's an example of one of those lovely prompts. So these are our star team players that we're taking a look at with their calls and different topics that we were interested in with our customers. And this then in turns, I can't show the results, but this then sends the email summary to my inbox every week that shows percentage of time, a change since the previous time. Any positives, any points of interest that are something that we can go jump on and go celebrate with our own teams, but also recognize, with each other so that those things are contagious and we bring them to future conversations. So it's changing how we work.
Thank you so much, Ingrid, for sharing your insights, your feedback. It's actually fantastic. Like,
Thank you.
have it being shared with the rest of the world. Uh, Next up, we have Matt Green. Matt comes from a sales leadership background. He coaches probably tens of thousands of reps annually through his program at Sales Assembly. And they have been using Sybill again for the last few years, if I'm not mistaken, Matt. It's been a while. And the way Matt uses Sybill is very, very unique. That aspect enables us to add in a layer of coaching to the entire EA part of Sybil. And I'm going to let Matt take the floor and share how he's leveraging Sybil and how uh, he thinks there is a coaching angle over here.
Yeah, thanks, Gorsh, and thank you everyone for giving me a few minutes of a time today. And I will apologize. I didn't realize that both Matt and I were going to show up with the same name and the same shirt on today. So we'll have to coordinate it in advance at the time. But yeah, what I really want to hone in on, as Gorsh mentioned, was the concept of coaching. But more importantly, and as I walk through some of these prompts and some of these examples in a moment, what I'd really like to hone in on is this concept of self-coaching. What do I mean by that? I mean the ability for leaders, like maybe many people that are watching this right now, to put their reps in an opportunity where they're going to be able to use Sybil to not only diagnose things that they need coaching on, but also maybe extract some different coaching opportunities to help them improve day to day. So essentially, to take, the leadership position, the manager position of coaching, make that a little bit more scalable and do so in a way that is probably going to be much stickier, right? Because when reps are able to not only diagnose their own problems, but also help come up with the potential solutions because they're internalizing everything, it's probably going to end up being a little bit more effective in the end, rather than just saying like, oh yeah, my managers tell me I have to do X, Y, Z. Well, no, Sybil's putting them in a position where the data is telling them what works and what doesn't. So I'll share my screen right now, and as Matt was walking through before, he's going to this Ask Sybil feature. Before hopping on, today I ran a few prompts just in the interest of time, so that we could go through these. And these are real world. These are essentially the calls that I'm having day to day. So for better or for worse, you're going to see what Sybil flags as far as areas of opportunity for me. Right. But when I think about coaching, when I think about rep improvement, I like starting very micro and then maybe zooming out into a little bit more of the macro. Right? So what I like doing from a micro perspective, pick one call, and you can see my prompt right here. Really simple. On my call with Octane yesterday, one thing I did well, one thing I should improve upon. That's it. One of the problems with coaching in general or feedback after calls, or meetings is that, sometimes managers, they tend to like overload on the feedback. Like, hey, I would have done this, I would have done that, I would have done the other thing. That's a whole lot for reps to sort of accept and internalize and really take action on. But when you focus on just one thing, good or bad, gives them something that is a little bit more actionable. And then, again, the cool thing about Sybil is it's going to ingest all this information. When I ask this prompt, it's like, hey, here's one thing you did well, right? Here's one thing that maybe you should do a little bit differently next time, right? So it's like, great. If I'm having one of my days where I'm having 4, 5, 6 calls, I take 15, 20 minutes after each one of these calls. I just run this really simple prompt, right, one by one after each call. It's like, okay, perfect. I know what I need to lean in on during my next call, but also I have a flag as far as like, okay, here's something that I need to be a little bit more mindful of. Here's something that I need to do a little bit differently during my next call. But then as we zoom out and take slightly more of a macro look, why don't we go over the past quarter, right? Over the past quarter, this again, very simple prompt. What are the trends, right? When I'm looking at why I win deals, but why I lose deals. Let's look at both, right? What is the data showing me? What is not my manager telling me? What is not some random peer telling me like, hey, you should do this differently? Well, no, no, no. What is the data telling me? What is true and what is not true? Right? And again, Sybil, just with this really simple prompt, going to provide some really compelling information. It's going to identify some of these deals over the past quarter. It's going to say, look, these deals, why you won, had the exact buyer involved, built a little bit of urgency behind it. Obviously, the way that I position sales assembly, our product or service, gave me some clarity there. And it said like, hey, Matt, these deals that you won, you really honed in on some acute tactical pains. Right? But again, don't only want to celebrate my wins, also want to find out, just as if not more importantly, why am I losing deals? And as you could probably guess, right, it's going to be basically the polar opposite of why I win. Like, look, why did I lose some of these deals? EB wasn't engaged, right? I was maybe dealing with a champion, and then I couldn't get in touch with the executive buyer. no critical event, right? Wasn't able to build a whole lot of urgency about something internalized within their organization without trying to like manufacture fake urgency, which tends not to work. Multi-stakeholder consensus, et cetera, et cetera. But then again, what's really cool about this is again, Sybil will take all this and say, like, okay, well, let's consolidate it, right? What are some things that maybe not only you want to start looking doing differently, but hey, are there other actions that you want me, being Sybil, to take? What other resources, what other coaching frameworks, what other templates can I provide to you that'll help you in your journey to close more of these deals and lose fewer of them? And I know from experience that if I prompt this like, hey, show me this playbook, or yeah, put together this one page, or Sybil's going to do a great job of providing that output. Moving along, we have a recurring revenue business here at Sales Assembly, just like a lot of other SaaS companies that we work with. So renewals are big for us. Doing something similar, right? Over the past quarter, all the renewals that we closed, what are some of the trends that connect them? And again, I won't run through these point by point, but you'll see right here, it's like, hey, here's some of the overarching trends, right? That lead to our high renewal percentage here at Sales Assembly. So I'm able to take this and I'm able to go to our CS team and say like, hey, when we're putting together business cases, when we're hopping into these QBR conversations, when we're reaching out to clients, 90 to 120 days before renewal, here's some of the 3 or 4 things we want to make sure that we're really focusing on, that we really come prepared to discuss. Because again, not just my opinion, data is telling us this is why we win renewals. And last but not least, I thought this was really cool. It's like, hey, across all my closed won deals this year, going back to trends, what are 1 to 2 questions that I've asked always during the sales process that connects all of these closed won deals, right? And you can see right here, it went all the way back to January and just pick these 2 questions, right? And again, in the day-to-day for a rep, they tend to not really, remember, always have top of mind, like, okay, well, what was one specific question that I thought did really well? You don't really know that in the moment. But now I know, like, hey, going forward on every sales process that I'm involved in, I'm going to make damn sure that I'm going to ask these 2 exact questions right here. Because again, data is telling me this is what is going to put me in the best position to close more of these deals and lose fewer of them. So again, didn't want to take up too much time, and I wanted to run through this really quickly, but I did want to provide some real world examples as far as how we use Sybil internally, not only for my personal coaching, coaching for our team here at Sales Assembly, especially on the customer success side, but also how we see a lot of our clients using this kind of platform to help improve their teams.
Wow, thank you so much, Matt. I think I learned a few prompts that I should be using actively for my day-to-day. Uh, really appreciate you sharing those insights. And next up, we have Nishit back, and Nishit is going to share his experience as a sales leader, as a head of sales, and how he's coaching his reps on a daily basis and what he has been doing. Nishit, the floor is yours.
Awesome. First of all, amazing ideas from both Ingrid and Matt that I really want to deploy right away in my own usage of Sybil. And I think that's one of the beauties of the platform, that we learn so much from our own customers, simply because there's so much you can ask and configure there. So I'll share a couple of ways in which I've been using Sybil as leading sales at Sybil itself. So I know Matt shared a lot around self-coaching and identifying patterns of what's winning. I went ahead and asked Sybil, hey, look at my team's discovery calls from the last week and create a report focusing on the good, bad, and ugly of our discovery process. Because I want to coach my team. I want to figure out what's working across the team, not just in my calls. And so Sybil kind of created a discovery QA report. So it tells me, okay, which calls or how many calls did I look at, an executive summary, the good, what's working. So this is basically across the team that, okay, we're aligned on our methodology. We're pretty good at setting next steps. We tie to early pains with clear differentiators and things like that. And then where we are not that great, essentially pulling timelines forward. This is something we've been discussing internally quite a bit, multi-threading and so on and so forth. And then Sybil goes into detail for some of the calls it looked at, some of the representative conversations, and then calling out explicitly what went well and what did not. So this is more of like a macro view of some of the stuff that we already saw in terms of how you can use Sybill to coach yourself. This is me as a manager going in and seeing, okay, across the major calls we had last week, what really happened, what went well, what did not go well, and how we can improve. And then Sybill also went ahead and suggested how we can do what we can do differently. Some questions that we can ask on the call to further tighten our discovery process, and how we can improve our script, as well as for each individual on the call, how they can improve, like one thing they can do next week to improve their own discovery process, right? Including for myself. And so this is a report that Sybill created, generated a PDF out of it, and sent it to my email after I did this. Now, how do you set this up to run regularly? Because I don't want this report only once. I don't want to be writing this prompt again and again. The way to kind of set it up to run regularly is to click on this button over here called Save Prompt. And once you hit this, you can give this a name, which is, let's say, Weekly Discovery Report. And then I can run this report weekly, set it up. So we do our one-on-ones on Thursdays. So every week, Thursday morning at 7 a.m., I want this report delivered to my inbox. So I'll send it to my email. I'll also send it to Gorish's inbox because I want him to be aware of what's going on in the sales process as well. And I can also send it to our go-to-market Slack channel. And so in this way, basically, it's not just me who's getting visibility into what's happening. I'm also making sure that my reps are also able to see what Sybill thinks we can improve upon and then take action accordingly. So this is one way. And once I set this up, now this is automatically set up, and every Thursday morning at 7 a.m., I'm going to get this kind of a report as a PDF delivered to my inbox and to my Slack. And I can also check it out inside of Sybill to take a look at what's happening across our sales team. So this is an example of how you can use Sybill for regular weekly coaching. The way I kind of like to think of this is going from like prompt to report. So you write a simple one-liner prompt and you get a report out of it. And this is one of the cool things that Sybill can do that nobody else can do. Sybill can analyze hundreds or even thousands of calls and deals at once and come back with synthesized insights and actions and next steps. Another example over here is obviously I want to coach my team, but at the same time, I also want to understand like where is the pipeline heading and what we can do to kind of accelerate that. So I asked Sybill, again, a simple prompt, what's our pipeline looking like right now? What are good upside and best case deals for the end of December? I also asked Sybill to anonymize the deals and deal sizes. But essentially over here, Sybill looked at, as you can see, 82 deals, all the live deals we have right now in this quarter. And then based on that, it came back with an analysis of which of the live deals look like they could be forecasted, which of those could be upside, and which of those could be best case, along with why it's there, what is the main risk, and how we can actually effect change on it. After that, Sybill has some kind of commentary on what this suggests overall and priority actions that we can do to increase the number of deals we're closing before the end of the year and to boost our kind of revenue number before we close out 2025. Isn't that what all of us want to do? And so basically, this gives me like a quick view of what needs to happen. And obviously, I can go deeper into this. So now that I have this report, I have this kind of snapshot of what's going to happen with these anonymized deals, I can potentially go in and say, oh, okay, cool. So sounds like if we get in, let's say these 3 deals with Apple, Google, and Meta, then I think we'll be able to close December out solid. Now tell me, what are the 3 things we should be doing right now or to move those forward? Some of them may need more multi-threading. Some others may need a stronger trial focus and things like that. And then you can go micro into a lot of that stuff. From the macro report that you have right now. So this is, again, we've looked at coaching, we've looked at pipeline forecasting. The other thing I want to look at is, again, zooming further out, going even more one level out and trying to understand how do we hit our number for the next kind of quarter or next couple of quarters and what is lacking there. So again, simple prompt, I went inside Sybill, asked it, hey, analyze our book of business as a fractional CRO. This is our target, figure out how we get there. This is much more action-oriented of a prompt rather than more of an insights and analytics-oriented. Again, I've anonymized the deals and the deal sizes and so on. But here, Sybill, and this is a prompt I ran start of October to try to understand how we could really close Q4 out strong. For this one, Sybill basically went into a performance snapshot of the major deals we closed in Q3, why we closed them, and what was the amount. Some notable patterns of the deals that we actually lost or were churned, and why those customers churned. What are some patterns over there? An overview of the pipeline for our next quarter, where are we at right now, and realistically what that's going to look like. So this is basically similar to the previous prompt, this particular section. But then this is where things get unique, because now Sybil has done a gap analysis between where we are at in terms of our Q4 pipeline versus what our target is, and then suggested, okay, cool. In order to get to this, these are the kinds of deals we need to close. These are the process gaps we need to close, because there are certain things in the process that are not going pretty well. Like in many of the major deals, we've not engaged the economic buyer before stage 2, or we've not qualified for the decision process before starting a trial. We need to fix those gaps in our process. So I, as a sales leader, know exactly like what my marching orders are. I got to go and train my team on doing this, right? And then Sybil also suggests some strategies that we can use to close the gap and to actually win the number that we're looking for Q4. So that includes like how we can displace some of the incumbents, how we can harp on the CRM automation, and expand some of the critical customers that we already have. And then Sybil goes deeper and deeper into it, creating OKRs and things like that. So that's kind of like a breadth of things that you can do with Sybil, especially when it comes to coaching, forecasting, and planning for the next quarter or even the next year, based on the data that Sybil has from call recordings, CRM, and email data, and so on and so forth. I think similar to some of the stuff that Ingrid was sharing about how her product team, marketing team leverages kind of understanding like the themes across customers. There's something I asked Sybil as well. Hey, what are the major reasons customers are buying Sybil over the last 3 months? Because I wanted to understand, okay, like, and figure out campaigns based on this that we should be running for our outbound and marketing efforts. And Sybil came back with a report again, like, your creativity is the limit on how much you can extract out of the data that you have in Sybil. So sharing one other example is I went into Sybil and said, hey, tell me 3 tactical ways in which I can position Sybil against Kong by looking at how my best reps do it and what our customers say about why they love Sybil. And then again, Sybil, being very surgical, very precise, came back with, okay, these are 3 ways you can position. And when it says that, hey, you can position cross-deal intelligence where Sybil looks at 100 plus calls, not one at a time, it also gives me specific conversations, specific emails, specific calls, specific lines from those transcripts that I can refer to when Sybil says that, hey, this play works. So I can actually go ahead and watch that specific 2-minute section of when a customer told us about why they love Sybil to use it in my messaging going forward. So these are some of the most, I think as a head of sales here at Sybil, these are some of the most prominent ways in which I use Sybil to move our own deals forward and to kind of train our team to forecast and basically as a lever for my conversations with Goresh and the board in terms of where we're going and where we need to go and why people are buying Sybil. So that was it on my end.
Isn't that awesome? There are so many things you can really use Sybil for. I think over the last year um, we have been so impressed with what some of our customers have done with Sybil. When we started out, our goal was a very simple one. How do we make a rep's life as seamless as possible? And sales is not an easy profession to beat. I have a lot of respect for people that are in sales that can actually hear no 10 times a day and still continue moving forward every single day. You don't have that kind of burden in any other domain, if I am not like, and the fact that our customers have bought in over the last year so many of these additional use cases, it's just very gratifying to build this kind of platform. Um, we, as we build this journey out, just on where we want things to go, where we think sales teams and sales reps are moving towards, especially in this increasingly AI native world, is having not just a dashboard or a report or just an index or a library of information that's out there, which is very hard to access. You need to run like you need to be very rigid in how you operate things. We want to be as seamless as the system can understand what's going on in your mind and almost produce what should be done in order to achieve what you want. That is the vision of where we are getting both Sybill to, and that's where we feel sales as a domain will come towards. If you are waking up in your day, you should have an easy list to understand what's the top items in your day, where can you fit in more stuff, and where can you do more beyond what you have just recorded. If you're ending your day, it can give you a recap of here is all that happened. These are the action items on your list, and help you complete those action items as quickly as possible. I feel we are on a journey to achieve that kind of nirvana in sales where you can be focused on the customers. And it is a privilege to be sold by a seller that can actually really understand my problems and solve those problems. It's an absolute privilege. And I think the fact that we have so many of these other things going around that we have to manage on the admin side, on the team side, on all of the other things that we have to do with tools and more software and more screens, those are just distracting sales from helping solve the problems of the customer. And we really hope to make this journey. Uh, Two final takeaways before we get into Q&A. First of all, uh, thank you so much, Matt and Ingrid had to leave, but really, really appreciate you both spending your time with us. Thank you, all of you, for taking the time to listen to our story, listen to how we have evolved over the last 3, 4 years now. Uh, if you are using, and so in terms of if you're not using Sybil today, the way you can use it is if you don't have a call recorder, I would really suggest you to try out Sybil, and it would change how your day-to-day operates, not in a matter of weeks, but in a matter of days. And you would suddenly have a lot more time both to spend with your customers and to introspect a lot more. If you're using an existing call recorder, one of the things that we are proud of is many of the customers will use Sybil on top of another tool. And that does not require you to have two separate call recordings. You can have a single call recording and Sybil can just run on top. That's it. That is the entire webinar. If there are any questions, call in. Let Why don't we discuss them right now? Or if someone wants to, I don't know if we can get people on the.
I can try. I can help kind of
Okay.
moderate a few of them, Gorish. One that stood out was just a question on, is there any high level roadmap? And so I'm wondering if there are some features that are top of mind that you wouldn't mind maybe speaking to in terms of what we're building.
Yeah, I think a couple of them that definitely comes to mind is the Slack integration. I think someone just asked a question on how we can get some of these tasks into Slack. That's one. So both multi-directional Slack integration. A lot of the times I have tasks and information that I'm sharing in Slack, which needs to go back into call recordings and into notes on my deals. That's the pulling in data from Slack. And then I also want Sybil to be accessed via Ask Sybil in Slack. So I can ask questions not having to log into Sybil platform, but if I'm already in Slack, I can just log into Slack and just ask that question, or I can have my tasks built out in Slack as well. So that Slack integration is one chain, which is we are very excited about. The second part is as we are evolving as a platform, we are adding more and more ways to take action. So right now you can write a follow-up email, you can create a calendar draft. We're working on how you can edit Google Drive, create docs, create actual files from your actions. And then the last one I'll say is a lot of the conversations happens not just on customer calls, but in team calls, but in-person meetings sometimes. So we're working to capture more of that data source. So it becomes a single source of data for all of your deals. And that I think is a very interesting one because it then gives you a 360 view of what did you discuss about the customer and how can it gives Sybil the context of what else is going on in that customer side.
Awesome. Another question that came up was from Joshua Gainey. He asked, can we ingest closed won data into Sybill to help train the prompts based on things that have actually worked versus a prompt without historical data? We hit on this a little bit with some of what Matt was presenting on, but maybe you can clarify.
Yeah. If you already have conversations that you have recorded, we can actually backfill those conversations into Sybill on day one. So now what that means is if you have let's say, the last 12 months of conversations, I could backfill that. You can start querying Sybill on those conversations and you can ask it what are reasons why we are close winning the deals. And that layer of analysis will continue moving forward into the future conversations. So you don't have to build a data set from scratch over a period of weeks or months. I remember one more question about smart templates from Jeremy. I don't know if Jeremy is still here, but smart templates is basically we are learning from how you like to send the email and that's on a specific call type. So we are almost building a personality profile for each single call type on what is the style of email that you like to write. And then Sybil is trying to replicate that style with smart templates. So it's a new feature. We have been launched it for 3 or 4 weeks, but the feedback we have gotten, and I have been using it, and it's absolutely phenomenal. And earlier I was always like, the automatic email was very robotic, but now it's close to being creepy is how I describe it. It's just becoming so good in terms of how I like to write the emails, and I see you have uh, you have seen the value here. So that's like one piece which we felt a lot of reps are still spending quite a bit of time. So I'm glad you see that this is picking up the tone really well.
I think those are the other main questions. There were a few questions on CRM integrations that I'm digging into with Danny, but I think those are some of the main ones. If I missed it, pop it in again. But otherwise, I recognize that we're at time.
Awesome. Uh, One last thing, if you have more of these questions, if you have team members that weren't able to join today, we do host an office hours every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific. I personally join the office hours. I have a couple of members from my support team and my product team join that. So that's an open session. You can come and go, ask your questions, clarify your doubts, and that's an easy way for you to either resolve anything or if you're wanting to learn more about Sybil, or how you can use it or talk about the sales stack. I always love to nerd about that. So feel free to join. Again, thank you everyone for joining today. Really appreciate your time. Hope you have a fantastic week and a month and awesome end of the year.